All right, welcome back to another episode of Theology in the Raw. I am here with, I'm going to say propaganda because that's how most people know you by.
Yep.
But you're Jason Petty.
Yep.
Uh, Most people I know just refer to you as prop. I mean, when you hear prop, is that the most common way people
That's the
refer to
most common.
prop? Okay, so
Yeah.
thanks so much for being on the show, man. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem. Unless you're married to me. She doesn't say prob.
She doesn't say prop.
No. Refuses. I
Is
don't
that
know.
Jason?
I don't know if you have an explicit warning on your thing, but there are things that she calls me that
Well, this is I branded this Theology in the Raw on purpose. So
I mean, how raw? You know what I'm saying?
honestly, no matter what you do, well, I'm not going to edit it out. So you can.
Okay.
Why don't we start to? I mean, I would say a large majority of my audience is going to know who you are, at least from a distance. But for
Okay.
those few that might not, give us a story. Who is Jason Petty?
Yeah.
Propaganda, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. South Central Los Angeles, born and raised, between there and like 20 minutes east in like the San Gabriel Valley, Escobina, La Puente area. I've lived in pretty much all of the sort of cornucopia of Los Angeles in the county. And I do a hybrid of sort of hip hop and poetry. One half of a podcast I do with my wife called the Red Couch Podcast. We talk about sort of social and political commentary, but just from a sort of a brown person's perspective. And my music kind of takes on the sort of the same tone, social and political commentary. I've been doing sort of music and poetry professionally for almost 10 years now, which is crazy to say. I got 2 daughters, one of which started high school today, which is so weird. But she's kind of living my dream, man. She's doing high school at in downtown, you know what I'm saying? And like, it's a high school for the arts. Like, that's what man, I wish I could have went to like a high school for the arts, you know?
Yeah.
So that's that. My wife has a PhD in ed policy and social context. She's usually the smartest person in the room. And even when she's not in the room, she's the smartest person. And I grew up in a Latino neighborhood. Our house is bilingual, and my baby daughter's learning Mandarin, so she's about to be trilingual. Friggin' jerk. And and that's kind of what I do.
What was your experience growing up in a Latino neighborhood? What was that
like? I mean, in some senses, it's like it's all I knew, so I kind of don't have much to compare it to. But it's just like my father was a Vietnam War vet, but he was also Black Panther. He was part of the Civil Rights Movement. So because of that, we had a very strong Black identity at home. So I never felt too much. I never felt a way about not loving who I was. It was just more like I didn't understand why the people outside ain't love what I was. What are y'all missing? You know what I'm saying? But it teaches you, I think, first of all, to just already have an understanding of just what it means to be bicultural or multicultural, just to be able to already relate to the other. You know what I'm saying? So sort of the type of kind of tribalism, I think that somehow or another, whether it's ethnic or even religious, when you become a Christian, just kind of have this idea that who's safe and who's not. You grow up in an environment like mine, it's just those rules they just seem silly to you, you know, because it's there is no other. I live among the other, so I don't understand what the other is, you know.
Yeah. I wonder what differences there would be. I guess you can't really, I don't know if you can compare it. I mean, growing up as a minority in a Latino neighborhood, how would that have been different if you're a minority in a white neighborhood?
I think that there was one is because, it's still hood. We were not we weren't privileged in any way, you know what I'm saying? Like, we went to the same schools, we died in the same bullets, you know what I'm saying? Like, the difference for me was like, you know, gang activity wasn't necessarily an option because I wasn't Latino, you know what I'm saying? And my family, which was down the street, a couple blocks, you know, over, you know, they were getting involved in some of that stuff. But since I wasn't there, I know for me, like I avoided a lot of that. Now, when we moved to the suburbs a little later, like my parents got a tax return, and then we moved sort of what we would call inland. And that's where I did high school. And there was a predominantly like white space. And it was like, I felt like a zoo animal, you know, like I was just this like unicorn to them. And that was pretty like, that was pretty jolting, you know what I'm saying? Cause I didn't understand what y'all ain't understand. You know, like I couldn't possibly be the first brown person you've met. Like, are you serious? How am I the first one? You know, and I just don't understand, like, what is so confusing about this? You know what I'm saying? Like,
wait, would they say that, or is that just how you felt, or both?
No, that's what they would say.
Really?
One guy was like, hey, is your, okay, I don't want to cuss because I was about to say it the way he said it. You
can, it's fine, yeah.
Okay, he was like, hey, is your shit white? Because mine is brown, and I just wondered if yours was. And I just looked at him like, this is the dumbest question I ever heard. Like, for real? Wow. What? You know, and just like little things like that, to where it was just like, I'm like, why would you? What do you know about humans? Like, how we like? Yeah. This is just a species, bro. Like, that's the type of question you'd ask. Yeah.
What? So, and by the way, you could speak completely freely. You're not going to offend me, and if you offend my audience, that you don't see them anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, true.
Freely is seriously like whatever. What did that kind of environment do towards your view of just white people in general? And then I got so many related questions with like what, growing up in an evangelical context, and so on. But
yeah, I just felt like the white people I had known before that, like, sort of experience was just like, it was hard for me to figure out which one of you were the norm. Like, which one of you should I expect? Because, like, so for example, there was a family across the street from me in the hood. His name was Thomas Pokinghorn. It was the only white family for miles. But I tell you what, Thomas taught me all the words to Paul Revere, you know, in Beastie Boys song. You know what I'm saying? If you're familiar with Humble Beast, like, Thomas was my best friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I just had this other experience that when I ran into this, it was like, okay, so is this how y'all act when we not around? Is this, or do I just know like, I don't, help me square this. Is like, do my friends have family that think like this? Like, it was just more just like, it was disorienting because I just didn't understand. Because I mean, like I said, having a Black Panther father, I was well aware of racism. You know what I'm saying? I was well aware of like what world I was about to get thrown into. But I just thought, I guess like anybody else, like you're looking at like a kid and you're going, real? Like, you know, and then just like all of my like inner city antennas being like, I should beat the crap out of you, right? Like, isn't that what I'm supposed to do right now? You know, just, right? I kick his ass, right? You know, and just, and, but just like the, like, knowing, well, you're pretty outnumbered, man. Like, look around. Like, really? You really want to, like, start something right now? You know, so it was just disorienting, you know?
Would you describe it as, like, mildly racist, blatantly racist, or just ignorant, or a blend of all?
I mean, it's probably a blend of all of them. It depended on, you know, what situation like that. So it did teach me that, like, yeah, there's not a monolith. You know what I mean? There's variance of thought among every people. You know what I'm saying? So like, there were times that it was just like, oh, you honestly don't know. There were times that like, oh, you're trolling me. You know, there are times that like, you know, you're looking back and figuring this out, you know what I'm saying? And then there's like the microaggressions, and then there's like, oh yeah, nah, this kid, yeah, you're legitimately racist. You know what I'm saying? You know, and it's just like, it's, you figure it out, you know what I'm saying? And then even when that kid makes that joke, like you see the other guy or the other girl that was like, yo, that was, I don't know, bro, that was kind of far. Like when you're watching almost like the other white kids look at that white kid and be like, what, bro? Like, yo, I don't know, dude, that actually sounded racist. We were just kidding. Like that's pretty bad, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you raised in the church, or what's your kind of
So my parents became believers in elementary school, and we just kind of like found a church in a phone book. And so my mother, it's hard to describe, man, because it's like, who wasn't at church? You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like who didn't go to church? You know what I'm saying? Like, so it wasn't that we like didn't go to church, you know, or knew who Jesus was or that he was Lord, you know. But my father was like, I mean, he was just, it's hard for me to say that I was a Christian home. You know what I mean? But I was, yeah, I mean, at junior high, I think I was like, I'm the product of like a good youth ministry, you know what I mean? But we were inner city kids, like, you know, kids in my group, they were our neighborhood drug dealers, you know what I'm saying? Like they was gang banging, sleeping with each other, you know what I'm saying? Like we were an inner city church, and our youth leader was like, you know, ex-con, you know what I'm saying? And like, you know, who the Lord saved and loved us and didn't want us to fall in the same traps, you know what I'm saying? And so like, yeah. I heard the gospel pretty young, you know, but and they were doing their best, my home, but it wasn't, I can't say in the way that somebody else would think when they say, oh, I grew up in a Christian home. I was like, nah, not like you mean. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You didn't go to Awana and watch VeggieTales.
No, never heard of any of that. You know what I'm saying? We did go to camp once. I remember we did go to youth camp. The Californians would know, like we went to Hume Lake, you know, yeah. And it was funny because it was like, little did we know they had 1 week in the summer that they lowered the prices for like the inner city churches, which we didn't know. I thought, dang, this costs a lot to come. It's like, we're the we're the low income churches. Word, okay. Yeah.
I bet they dreaded that week, by the way. I would love to talk to the
Oh, that'd be so rad, dude. Because it was ratchet. Like, we're pretty ratchet. But, I mean, I heard the gospel there. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, that's where I want to say I became a Christian at Hugh Blake. You know?
Hugh Blake? No way.
Yeah.
I might have been there because I was there a few summers. We're close to the same age. Do you know what year that was? Is that like late?
No, bro. Middle school. It was definitely the middle school ones. But, man, I don't remember.
So how would you describe your, for lack of better terms, your like theological journey, like where you, so let's just go from Hugh Blake conversion to now, what kind of churches, what kind of Christian subculture do you swim in? Theologically, how
so you gotta remember, like, I mean, you know this, you know, California was not the Bible Belt. Like, so our categories just look very different than the rest of America. Like there's still, I mean, it's still American evangelicalism, but it's just different, you know? So, like I said, I went to this like inner city non-denominational church that were, you know, leaned Pentecostal, you know, but our pastor was, you know, APU, like Azusa Pacific professor, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, we had a Spanish speaking pastor, you know what I'm saying? So it was just mainline non-denom, you know, with charismatic bends. But I didn't think much about the sort of theological positions we were having because our pastor was so intelligent that like, he just, I guess now looking back, it would be like, he would preach like a Reformed Calvinist, like as far as like the academia of it, but he wasn't in any way a Reformed Calvinist, you know what I'm saying? So it was just like, so I had this like other sort of thing, but like my family, like my grandmother's brothers, you know, so my great uncles were like Citizens of Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Compton, California. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, that's my extended family, is like they hoopers and moaners, you know what I'm saying? Who at the time, just because it was like, oh, you know, my father was a Black Panther. So it was all about like intelligence and knowledge and stuff like that. Like I didn't want anything to do with them because I felt like it was not cerebral enough. You know what I'm saying? Plus it was just like, you know, it's at grandma's church, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna be here all day, you know, it's Baptist, so we're gonna be here all day. It's a Black Baptist. It's gonna be 17 songs, it's gonna be 5 hours long, you know. So I just didn't want to be there. And then we didn't have, there was like, especially because like hip hop's such a big part of even my theological journey, because of the church I was in, they were like, these dudes were, not only were they gangsters, they was graffiti writers, they were skateboarders, you know what I'm saying? So like hip hop was never, there was no subgroup of like Christian art. Like I was a Californian. So like if you loved hip hop, you went where hip hop was. So we were at the same hip hop spots. We were all freestyling, you know, we were all sort of living this other thing. It wasn't until college that somebody presented to me the idea of Christian rap. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't know, it was no such thing. I knew plenty of rappers that were Christians because the churches weren't booking rappers. So like, I didn't know that was a thing. You know what I'm saying? So that actually introduced me to other sort of theological worlds. So like, knowing what it meant to be sort of Arminian versus Reformed, you know, accountant and stuff like that. Like it was hip hop that actually showed me that, you know what I'm saying?
Really?
Yeah. And then so I somehow took a deep detour into the Reform world. And it was partially because that's who was embracing hip hop, you know what I'm saying, at the time. Because again, I just didn't, and it was cool because again, I come from a very, again, cerebral kind of academic thinking. So I felt like, oh, this is like scratching that itch, right? So I spent a lot of time there, and then Trayvon Martin was killed. And again, I come from a Black Panther father. I come from a civil rights family. So this was a Claritin call that like, we need to start talking, you know what I'm saying? Like there's something going on here. And it kind of like, and it sort of confirmed some of my like concerns, if you will, because I couldn't understand why y'all love the Puritans so much. And I was like, why do they keep talking about the Puritans? I was like, these were slave owners. Like, I don't understand why y'all love them so much. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I don't understand how y'all so smart and you haven't connected these dots. Like, so then when that happened and I just saw like nobody was in any way affected by this murder of this unarmed Black kid. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I don't understand why none of y'all. So then that's when like sort of, and then you go into Nashville, and I went into Nashville like thinking, this is amazing. You got like this churches on every corner. What is that? Is that 10 Commandments on the wall? This is great, dude. You guys are just like openly Christians. You know, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then just kind of like the facade coming down and being like, oh, that's not really what's happening. Oh, this is still the South. Oh, I'm in the South. You know, and so that was there, and then I just felt like I just started noticing just this overwhelming sense of just like arrogance and just pompous kind of attitude And I just felt like this, whether it was purposeful or not, like there was just this like side effect of having such a emphasis on thinking right, that it just to me created just this pompousness that I was like, I feel it welling up in myself because I'm looking down at my Mama Winnie and my Uncle CL, who were, as I've known it, the holiest people I've ever met. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't know what they couldn't explain superlapsarianism. So somehow or another their conversion is less as valid as mine. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, if my theology is making me arrogant and drawing a fence around another believer, then I need to think about my theology. You know what I'm saying?
So you're talking about your kind of reflection on your kind of journey in the reform kind of.
Yes. And that's what it was. That's what was, I felt like what was being developed in me. Like I wasn't growing in the faith. I was growing in arrogance, you know, and I just saw this just blatant disregard for the value of other humans, you know what I'm saying, in their lives. So I was like, something's not adding up, you know what I'm saying? So it made me pull out and just sort of like read a little more on the naughty list, you know, and just kind of have a more global approach to what it means to be a part of the body, you know.
And this is all in the wake of Trayvon Martin's murder.
That's what started it, you know what I mean? So that's like 2012, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of started this like sort of unraveling of what was a very linear, but in my mind, like a very linear sort of trajectory of theology, you know what I'm saying? To where no, go ahead.
Yeah, from the Trayvon Martin Institute, let's just say 2012. Is that and I haven't followed all of your work, but as I see it seems like that makes sense that your more recent, at least your hip hop albums, have taken a much more decisive socio-political emphasis. Would that be an accurate way?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's more noticed now because all of my music has always had that. Okay. Because, like I said, I come from a place where your social engagement, your orthopraxy and your orthodoxy were never separate. Those were never two different things. That's not where I come from. You know what I'm saying? I come from where every Tuesday we're at the homeless shelter. You know what I'm saying? Every Wednesday we're at the food bank. Like I just come from that, you know? So I had no idea that people needed a chapter and verse to engage. You know, I just didn't, to engage for civic engagement. I just didn't understand that as a thing. So my music has always had that. My music has always had the fragrance of scripture, and it's always had a political engagement. Because like I said, I didn't know there were rules, you know, just like if you listen to like a Wu-Tang album, it's always been 5%ers. They've always had that in their music. You know what I'm saying? Mos Def, Talib Kweli, they've always had like Islam in their music. You know what I'm saying? Just like I've always had Christian in my music, you know? So I think what happened was like because this was happening as I was stepping into this like reformed world, they were focusing, going, wait a minute now, what are you talking about? What is this? Who's that person? Why are you talking about that? And I'm like, what do you mean, why am I talking about that? What? You know? So it kind of, I definitely hit the gas a little harder because I was like, oh, you don't know this. Okay, well let's talk some more.
So yeah, I don't follow Lecrae much at all, but it seems like he's had a similar thing where he was kind of the poster child of the reform.
Yeah.
Once you start pushing on the race thing, a little bit too much, it's like, okay, you can do a little bit.
Yeah.
Within this kind of framework, you know, make sure you're within this tribe. But once you start stepping outside of that and really challenge, I remember a few years ago on 4th of July.
Yeah.
He tweeted I laugh because it was so bold and necessary, but he tweeted a picture of a cotton field and says these
are what my ancestors were doing on the 4th of July. Yeah.
I tweeted it because I thought it was brilliant. I'm like, what's the problem? Like, I understand the pushback that would say, let's not only live in the past and not acknowledge progress. I understand that. I would agree with that. but to literally whitewash the
Yeah.
past, or to not acknowledge the profound and lasting impact, so the
Yeah.
lasting social implications of this incredibly dark history of our country.
Yeah.
So that's just naive. Like, we don't need to
Yeah.
we should say yes every time 4th of July. We should acknowledge maybe the good things America's done, and also acknowledge the very bad things we have done, and be
Yeah.
anyway. I didn't even see it as an issue, but I think that my question is, well, here's where I was trying to go with this is, has your sort of, I wouldn't say movement, but more maybe explicit
Hmm.
addressing of some of these socio-political issues, has
Yeah.
that putting you on the naughty list with some of the reform?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, for me, I was never like, Lecrae was a darling, you know. I was never a darling, because I think I got on that world's radar. I kind of came out swinging as far as they were concerned. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So the inroads I made were already, their introduction to me was like, yo, this is who I am. There was no real pivot, like, for from the public perspective. Lecrae had a pivot, you know.
Okay.
So for them, they I think in a lot of ways, like, not only was it like, you're shooting at our sacred cows, I think for them, they felt betrayed. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, we made you a star. Like, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. Like, we made you a star, and it was because we believed you were this, and it turns out you're not. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was like the thing for him. I think for me, like I said, like, I mean, I just wasn't. They ain't love me like they love Lecrae. You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, they didn't love nobody like they love Lecrae. Like, he was a unicorn at the time. You know what I'm saying? So I just think, like, yeah, it's like anything. When you play fair, when you play by the rules, everybody loves you. You know what I'm saying? You don't shove too hard. You know what I'm saying? Once you start shoving, it's like, yeah, the casual listener is going to be like, man, I didn't come to you for this. I came to you for what you used to do. That's part of being an artist. It's part of being a full grown, developed human. That you're not gonna be what you were 10 years ago. I hope you're not. You know what I'm saying?
Better not. What are some socio-political themes?
Yeah. Oh, that is something I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up. I was gonna say, one thing that happened, I think, for his music and for my music, the ratcheting was up. Well, a lot of times, because that's what happened in culture. Culture ratcheted up. You know what I'm saying? Like, just the world got more intense. So because of that, like, we're living in the world. You know what I'm saying? So our music's gonna reflect it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that might be also what you're seeing. It's like we're just reflecting our times.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of those socio-political themes that, especially in your latest album, Crooked, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just reading through some of the lyrics this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, man, yeah, you're definitely hitting on some sacred cows here.
Yeah, man.
What I love about it is it feels like, and I really despise conservative liberal kind of labels and boxes and all that
Totally.
stuff. Let me just say, it seems like you're willing to challenge various tribes.
Absolutely.
Sit back in one tribe lobbing bombs at the other. You seem very, very fair, But yeah, so what are some of those social
Yeah, man.
keep you up at night?
I think it's exactly what you're saying, is the idea of, like, if you're being, using all the leads, you're being spiritually, theologically, intellectually responsible, then you can't just sit on one side of one little square, and lob them at the other. You know what I'm saying? And I tried to make an album that keeps you off balance, in the sense that, like, I'm shooting forward, I'm shooting at myself, I'm shooting to the right, I'm shooting to the left. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that it's always ping-ponging between all of these different sort of, like, directional attacks. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times they're to myself. But I think ultimately those themes are like, yeah, I want to challenge the concept of tribalism in the first place. And then when we do that, like, how we build up these sort of, like, Babel towers and then for the believer, lie to ourselves and call that Christian living. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of like, whether it's patriotism and just putting that up as like, tantamount to our faith. And it's just not, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's that. There's the idea of like putting our hope in the collapse of a unfair system. Like, whereas like I am satisfied when this evil system collapses, and realizing that that's not going to satisfy me either, and it probably won't ever collapse. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't put me off the hook. Like I'm still like Jesus says, like occupy till I return. Like there are still image bearers in front of me, and I still have a duty to fight for the dignity and honor of that. You know what I'm saying? But like the source of my rest is not if white people stop being racist. Like that's not going, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I think that there's, again, it's just the concept of tribalism in the first place. And then everything that comes with that, you know what I mean? Believing that, the father has picked a political party. He just hasn't. You know what I'm saying? They're made up from the French Revolution. Like they're not even that old. You know what I'm saying? So even just the motif of left and right. That's the French Parliament. Like you just do some homework. You know what I mean? And the two ends of them are both like authoritarian. Like they kind of, it's more of a loop. They meet at the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so thank you for saying that, because I feel like I keep saying that.
Yeah.
My 30-second narrative, raised steeped in fundamentalism, swung kind of the other side. Now I'm a moderate follower, whatever.
Yeah.
On some issues I might sound conservative, some issues I might sound more liberal, and I don't even like those categories. Anyway, but what I've seen, having raised in fundamentalism, and I get attacked now on both sides.
Totally.
The rhetoric and posture. Hold on a second.
Word.
Got some dude drilling outside my house.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, goodness. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this mic down. Get really close. Anyway, the rhetoric and posture of the conservative fundamentalists is almost identical when you side to the authoritarian kind of far radical left, whatever. And I'm like, I'll get sometimes tweets back to back that sound almost identical.
Like,
for the thing that they're angry at me about.
Yeah.
Like, go hang out, man. You guys no effort to understand what I'm saying. Twist
totally.
Little thing in the worst possible light. I'm like, man, what is this?
So funny, man. Like out here, like you take something like education, where it's just like you have your far right fundamentalists, just like the school system's brainwashing them. We have to pull them out and just homeschool our kids. The far left is like the school system's brainwashing them. We got to pull them out. They just call it unschooling. These fools call it homeschooling. I'm just like, okay, so what you're saying is you want to be the sole like arbiter of information for your children. Cool. Got it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right? And so, or just like you're whether you're extreme far left, you got a dictator. Whether you extreme far right, you got a chancellor. You're still just looking at one dude. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's still totalitarian, So like, just, take a second.
It's like both of the extremes don't know how to handle like humanizing dialogue in the midst of disagreement, like being exposed to robust presentations of alternative views where you can humanize the other person and radically maybe disagree, but still see them as, not the enemy necessarily, unless
totally.
You beat me up or something.
Unless you actually are. Yeah.
There are some enemies out there.
You're not the enemy until you are the enemy. Yeah.
So what's been looking back now to 2019 on your journey in evangelicalism and in and out on the front, however you describe that? I mean,
totally.
Blind spots. And I'm just going to say it, like, obviously American evangelicalism is profoundly white.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, I mean, as a white person, I'm not saying that means every single white person is
totally
a problem at all. And but there is a whiteness
Absolutely.
to American evangelicalism. I'm just gonna say obviously, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of blind spots would you want people to think through as we reflect on race and American evangelicalism?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. One, I think that like repentance and restoration is within whiteness, within itself, is something that I think if that the evangelical world needs to really reckon with. It's just like, okay, hey, like there are some serious realities about the way you've shaped your identity, you know, and there's some stuff that y'all just got to repent for, that you just have to just recognize is just true, you know, and working in the same way that the rest of us are doing, working in our own sanctification. We all brought our crap to the cross, and I'm just saying that's just part of your goulash of crap. You know what I'm saying? That you just gotta work through it, dude. Like so just the reality of that, just the detangling of sort of the American myths and like, you know, recognizing where you've been sold a bill of goods, like the whole Nixon thing and just the religious right, like y'all got duped, cuz like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and just being willing to like reckon with that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's one. I think when I think of myself, you know, including myself, because I can't just like, I mean, I'm still a Western Christian. Like I even thought from, for a while, like, man, I was looking up like Coptic churches. I was going to East. I was like, I'm out. I'm going, I'm going Eastern Orthodox. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna figure it out, you know? But at the end of the day, I was like, yo, hey, prop, you're not Egyptian. Like you're not from Egypt, bro. Like you're a poser. Like you're being a poser, and that's their culture. A lot of their faith is wrapped in their culture. You not from their culture. So just it is what it is, bro. You from California. Okay? Accept it. You are a Western Christian. What are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was like going, okay, now having said that, uh, what I found is like I'll take the I'll take Peter and Paul, for example. I'll take Peter on the roof in Acts, you know, getting this vision of like, you know, call nothing I made clean unclean, and Peter knowing exactly what, you know, God was trying to tell him at that moment. How that is had to be an existential crisis. Like that's a pretty big pivot, you know, from what a faith you've been practicing for thousands of years, and God going, I think you kind of missed it. I think you I think you missed it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean I missed it? Like, this is from Deuteronomy, bro. Like, what do you mean I missed it? You know? So I just don't know if I had really the guts to like hear what Christ was saying at that moment of like, and it's the same thing that happened with Paul being like, yo, hey, homie, you're persecuting me. Like, and just Jesus just continually being like, no, 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 them too. No, them too. Tent's wider than you think it is. Them too. No, and just having the guts to like take everything that I thought I knew and understood and was standing on solid, rigorous theological training, and having the guts to be like, hey, homie, you might be thinking about this. You might be thinking about this incorrectly. You know what I'm saying? And there's a them too, you know? So I think that to me, that's what I've learned. That's what I would say is like, what are those, I'm saying this for myself. That's why I'm able to like do this. That's why I did all that thing about, I'm also a Western evangelical. Is like, I'm having to ask myself, where are those no bro them too? Where is God calling me to pivot and be like, you've actually I know you think you know, but there's a deeper story here. You know what I'm saying? That I was actually pointing at, and I'm trying to reveal this to you. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm thinking about it now.
That's super helpful, actually. That's oh man. I mean, just it's awesome that you're still. I love the emphasis on self-reflection because oftentimes the older we get in the Christian faith, and also the more you see blind spots in
Yeah.
church and other people, it can become easy to kind of think like, man, I got it all together, but it's those people out there that are the
Totally.
to continue that kind of self-reflection, I think is admirable and necessary for a genuine Jesus follower. I'm curious, and I know we talked about avoiding tribalism and labels and stuff, but
Yeah.
is there a person, people, or group of evangelical Christianity that you would resonate with most, or people that you're like, man, these people or this person is, I think they're really getting it, you know?
Yeah, that's hard, man. I think as an artist, I get to traverse so many different spaces. And I feel like, and even when I say like challenging tribalism and as a whole, I think that there's a type that kept us alive. Just like, just the development of the human species. There was a type of tribalism that honestly like, hey, I can trust this person because when they tell me, hey, don't eat that plant, I can believe you. You know what I'm saying? So there's a type of tribalism that honestly kept us alive. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying the idea is the whole thing needs to get thrown away. But I think it's more where we decide to like draw the ropes. So for me, it's like in any of these sort of diverse spaces, I felt like, just that there's been certain resonance or just fragrances of individual people within all these different circles that I've been like, I recognize this. This is beautiful. You know what I mean? So for me, like I traverse between, like we talked about before, the like audio feed, liturgist world, and also the like catalyst and Q world. You know what I'm saying? Like I get to do all these things, and then you just get to meet like rad believers that like I honestly like don't know their theological traditions. I don't know what church they go to. Like I don't know it. I just know feel like I'm seeing the reflection of the fruit of the Spirit, if you will, to use like Christian language. I feel like I'm just seeing it in them. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard for me to land on a home. Like I'm not trying to like dodge the question. Like this is legit. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like even if, like I'll be even real. Even in my own home church, there are times that I'm just like, I don't know, bro. Like I don't know if I'm feeling a lot of this. You know what I'm saying? But I love Nate. You know what I'm saying? I think Nate's a rad dude.
But that's good. I think you could be part of a tribe and not be tribalistic. I think those are different things.
So so I go to a church plant in Long Beach that's part of the SBC. You know what I'm saying? Which would be a shocker, right? You see what I'm saying? I know it's a shocker. You know what I'm saying? But like it's a California one, so it's like we don't. It's like Costco. You know what I'm saying? Like the SBC is like Costco. It's just like you can get anything.
So Long Beach, you said what's the church? Can I ask the church?
Yeah, it's Reach Fellowship. Damon Horton, our pastor, but it's like 3 years old.
I might have I've done some work in Orange County area. I know Long Beach isn't Orange County, or is it? I know it's.
I got you. You good?
No, I mean I feel I often I don't know what tribe I belong to. And
yeah, man.
I genuinely love, like in the ministry that I do, we'll swing all the way from like conservative Baptists to Pentecostals to Catholics and UMC, FMC,
totally.
RCH. I mean, the whole wide range.
All of them.
Genuinely take things, like appreciate certain aspects of every one of those things, while saying, yeah, this maybe tribe I wouldn't quite identify with as much here. I don't really fit in well here, but man, I could appreciate, because at the end of the day, when you get to know people,
totally,
just trying to follow Jesus as genuinely as well as they can. I mean, they got blind spots. I got blind spots. But when you get face to face with actual people, those labels and assumptions just kind of go to the. I
just feel like
background.
Totally. I just feel like we're all trying to put this like mosaic together. That's this image of God. You know what I mean? And it's like you just get different little chunks and flecks here and there. You know what I mean? And I just feel like, for me, when I think about Holy Spirit, I feel like it's like when you recognize like, oh, that's a fleck, that's a little piece, that's a piece of the image of God. You know what I'm saying? It's like, snatch that, hold on to that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, there it is over there. Hold on to that. You know what I'm saying? And when you just see it, it's just like, I'm like, your lens is not so like descended so close into the particulars. It's like I pulled out because I'm trying to see a bigger picture. And then you just kind of like reach in and be like, I want that piece. That's it. That's what I was looking for. Boom. You know, and then you could like put it on your wall. Like, okay, there's a part of the image. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I don't see the whole thing. I know I don't have the whole thing. But that little, whatever that was, that's a hint. You know what I mean?
So good. Hey, man, I want to respect your time. We're pretty much out of time, but I want to make sure I talk about the Red Church podcast, which you do with Alma, and you're in season 3. Is that like year 3 or just?
We just finished season 3, which is year 3. So we took it. So for this one, we're taking it on the road. Gonna do some live ones for season 4. So you got to come to the recordings. They're full shows. You know.
You have a tour. What's Hard to Love tour? Is that
Hard to Love tour? Yep.
Where can people go to find out about that?
So you can go to my website, just prophiphop.com. We'll be in Chicago, LA, Oakland. We'll be in Nashville. We haven't announced the Nashville one, but you just heard it now.
Boise, Idaho after that?
Boise right after that. Nah, maybe. You never know.
That might be like your high school experience if you
Right. You just walk in like, yeah, dude.
Hey, thanks so much for your work, your ministry, and I've often.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
I'm not I'm a writer, academic. I'm not an artist, but man, I would be the first one to say that I think artists are the prophets of the church. I mean, they're
thank you.
5 to 10 years out
for sure
at where we're going and able to speak back almost
back in
time in a sense. And so I so love and value artists like yourself who are doing amazing work. So keep it
I appreciate that, man. Yes, sir.
The attacks get to you. I'm sure you get hit.
Oh, I'm good. Don't even trip.
Take care, bro.
All right, brother.